3 million years ago, the world was a canvas of raw, untamed creation. A wild, trembling planet of steaming jungles and endless, violent storms. The very air hung thick and heavy with the scent of damp fern and fresh blood. Volcanoes rumbled across the horizon like angry, restless gods, and creatures far beyond our modern imagining prowled the shadowed lands. In a valley veiled by mist and the passage of time, there lived Cora. She was a young woman of the Dawn tribe, a fragile, flickering flame in a world teeming with monsters. Her people were resourceful, building their huts near the edge of the great forest, where ancient trees rose like silent green towers, and the air itself shimmered with heat and the gaze of hidden eyes. They were hunters and gatherers, storytellers and dreamers, but above all else, they were survivors. And deep within that same forest, a legend walked. Kagor, the Mountain Ape, a creature of myth and raw muscle. He stood 20 feet tall, his fur as dark as gathering thunderclouds, his eyes glinting with a fierce and uncanny intelligence. To the tribe, Kagor was both a guardian and a terror. Children would whisper his name in hushed tones, believing he was a spirit born of the earth itself, half god and half beast, the protector of the delicate balance between the human world and the wild. But peace, like all things in that brutal age, was a fragile and fleeting thing. It all began on a morning drenched in gold. Cora, driven by a desperate need, ventured deeper into the jungle than any of her tribe dared to go. She was searching for rare blue orchids, flowers that only bloomed in the heart of the mist, where the sun's rays never touched the forest floor. Her father had fallen gravely ill, and the healers needed the orchid's precious sap to draw out the fever that consumed him. She moved quietly through the thick undergrowth, barefoot and brave, her senses sharp. She was utterly unaware that something vast and ancient was stirring beneath the very roots she walked upon. Suddenly, the jungle's symphony of sounds went silent. Even the chattering birds and buzzing insects fell quiet. Then, the earth shuddered. From the dark, rich loam, a nightmare erupted. A centipede so monstrous it seemed carved from obsidian and fear, a colossal arthropleura, as long as 30 men laid end to end. Its body was a horrifying sequence of armored plates, each segment rippling with legs that looked like sharpened knives. Its massive mandibles dripped with a venom that sizzled and smoked when it struck the soil. Cora froze, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. Her breath caught in her throat as the creature's head rose high above her, its antennae twitching, tasting her fear on the air. She knew, with chilling certainty, that one strike would be her end, swallowed into a writhing pit of chitin and shadow. Then, from the canopy high above, came a roar that shattered the sky. Branches snapped like dry bones as Kagor dropped from the treetops, his immense body shaking the ground upon impact. He pounded his chest, a primal drumbeat that echoed through the entire valley, a challenge to the abomination below. The centipede screeched in response, a shrill, metallic cry that made the very air vibrate. The great ape's eyes fixed first on Cora, trembling and small among the gnarled roots. Then, they shifted to the monster. There was no hesitation. There was no thought. There was only pure, primal instinct. He charged. The battle that followed was like the collision of worlds, a clash of titans from a forgotten age. Kagor slammed his powerful fists into the centipede's armored hide, each thunderous blow sending spiderweb cracks through its shell. The beast, enraged, coiled its tremendous length around him, its hundreds of legs digging deep into his fur, trying to crush the life from his body. Its venomous fangs struck, grazing his shoulder, the poison burning like fire in his flesh. But he did not fall. With a roar that seemed to shake the very mountains, Kagor seized the centipede's neck and wrenched it upward with all his might, tearing through muscle and plate. The creature writhed and shrieked, its body thrashing wildly against ancient trees and massive boulders. It felt as though the forest itself was weeping and screaming as these two giants battled for supremacy beneath its canopy. The fight raged through the valley, tearing a path of destruction through trees that had stood since the dawn of time. Kay's aura could only watch, paralyzed by a mixture of awe and sheer terror, as the centipede wrapped its coils ever tighter, trying to smother the great ape in its crushing embrace. She could see Kagor's incredible strength begin to falter. Blood streamed from his wounds, matting his dark fur. The centipede's potent venom was hissing through his veins, stealing his power. Then, his weary gaze found Cora again, and he saw her eyes, wide with desperate fear. A new fire ignited within him. With a final, explosive roar, he hurled himself backward, slamming the centipede's head into a jagged stone outcrop. Once, twice, and a third time, until its skull finally split like an overripe fruit, spilling dark, viscous ichor into the river below. The colossal body twitched, shuddered, and at last fell still. Kagor staggered to his feet, panting, his massive chest heaving. The venom burned, and his breath grew shallow. He turned toward Cora, this fragile creature he had just saved, without fully knowing why. She approached him slowly, cautiously, tears cutting clean lines through the ash and dust that covered her face. You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion and disbelief. Kagor simply watched her, his intelligent eyes holding a depth she couldn't comprehend. His hand, enormous, scarred yet impossibly gentle, reached out and brushed her shoulder, leaving a mark of his blood and the earth upon her skin. Then, with a final rumbling growl that sounded almost like a sigh, he retreated back into the forest's depths, back to the mist, back to legend. Cora returned to her tribe, carrying not just the life-saving blue orchids, but a story that would echo through eternity. For generations, her descendants told of the great ape who fought the poisoned serpent beneath the mountains, a god beast who risked his own life to save a woman of the Dawn tribe. They carved his likeness into stone and wood, preserving his memory. And in every telling, in every carving, his eyes were filled not with rage, but with something deeper, something profound, something almost human. And though time eventually buried that ancient forest beneath eons of wind and ice, some say that when the earth trembles and the jungle whispers on the wind, the spirit of Kagor still walks, the eternal guardian of the fragile sacred bond between humankind and the wild heart of the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the mists of history. We'll see you in the next one.